Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Sweetpea, Season 1, Episode 5. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. The penultimate episode of the series. As we see at the beginning, the Julia thing has gone viral, relatively speaking, in the town. There's things all over the place, and I guess Rhiannon kind of like underestimated how beloved Julia is, which I think that's supposed to be like the interesting and ironic follow up to last episode, which was not even ironic, but just like how it goes in tow with the fact is the last episode was called Everybody Loves Julia, or Everyone Loves Julia, whatever the case may be, and now it's like, right, we see that when like the town is kind of like amassed around this. There's so much support, people out there performing, just everyone in the entire community. Even the people that Rhiannon's like, people I want to kill. I want to kill the community that decided to come together for this specific person, So that's what kind of rubs her the wrong way. She has to take care of Julia, feeding her. Well, she wasn't initially feeding her, just giving her something to drink, giving her a pee bucket, which I'm sure also operated as a poop bucket, but whatever the case may be, it's like, well, you probably wouldn't have to be dealing with all this if you didn't go ahead and kill her, if you went ahead and killed her. But it's like, right, last episode's revelation makes it kind of a complicated conundrum, especially because they get into an argument this episode where it's like, right, she kills bullies, and it's like, well, what about me? It's like, well, you kind of threw a wrench in the plan because now it revealed to me that your husband's a bully, so now I'm feeling sympathetic for my bully who made my life hell, but am I okay with the fact is that your husband's abusive to you and making your life hell? It's such a, that's the thing, the villain of your story, the villain of your entire life turns out to actually be a victim of somebody else. And it's just like, what do you do with that? Because it's like, how am I that's such a conflicting thing of like, ooh, it's like, yeah, this person you spent so much of your life hating and despising and wanting to kill, and now you're on the verge of doing it. You couldn't do it even when you had all the motive in the world, and now you have extra motive not to do it now. So it's like, there's like a complex of feelings, because there ends up being this interesting conversation about Rhiannon's like, why did you do what you did to me? She's like, fine, I'll tell you. It's because my life was shit and I felt like shit, so I wanted to make you feel like shit. She's like, no, it has to be more than that. She's like, no, there's not going to be some self-realization ta-da moment you're going to have. It's like, I was a shitty person and I treated you like shit. And she's like, I do look back on it and I regret it. And it's like, I don't know if the thing is, I don't know if she really does. Because, like, the way she acted to Rhiannon, like, a lot of times her reactions to Rhiannon has been in response to Rhiannon. It's a reaction to Rhiannon's response. But it's like, Rhiannon has her response the way she is because she's had years of all this, like, pain and hurt and self-doubt and self-disgust because of you. You, like, traumatized her, and that PTSD brings that up. And I guess Julia maybe not wanting to have to face that or really contend with it, because maybe deep down she does hate herself for it, and so she gets snarky and snippy. She turns back into who she was just to counter Rhiannon because she doesn't want to think about what she did. So it's hard to say, because there's so much throughout those conversations. You're like, is she being genuine with that, or is she just saying what she's saying because she's trying to get Rhiannon to like let down her guard? And that's why I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I feel like there is some nuggets of truth and elements to, she does look back on what she did, but she kind of moved on with her life because it was easier just to move forward. Like, I just won't be that person again. But being around Rhiannon, who's reminding you of who you were, trying to throw it in your face, you want to throw it back at her. So, like I said, she was nasty to her in the earlier episodes before she got kidnapped. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if it's just like a default response to her, because maybe it's a thing, because the argument could be like, well, her reason for doing it back then was she felt like shit. She's feeling like shit now because she has an abusive husband who hurts her physically and tears her down. So it's like, the argument could still be made, like, it might not even be just Rhiannon. It's just her defense mechanism of, I feel like crap, I have to tear down someone else to make me feel better about myself. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, her perspective on it, Julia's, is that Rhiannon's kind of like, she's the one deciding to do this, but she's like, well, you think I chose this myself? And it's like, ta-da. It's like, you are the one making the choice to do this. It's like, you could have lived a regular life, but it's like, for her, it's like, how could I was never able to move past my trauma But it's like, for her, it's like, you had a dad, you had people who loved you. She's like, I wasn't that fortunate. And it's like, I mean, and even that's hard to like gauge, because it's like, well, we know her dad loved her, but once again, it's like, we don't know why her and Saren have like the relationship they do, like why Saren ended up the way she did. Once again, maybe she's meant to be like a mirror image of Julia in that regard, but it's such a complicated thing, and I think that's what makes it so fascinating, because like it's so easy for things to be so black and white, and now you're adding in these massive shades of grays and complicating the situation for Rhiannon. She tried to give Julia some food, but when she was like talking to AJ, which her and AJ are trying to work their way back to being okay, but then AJ hears some stuff happening in the house, and he assumes it's her still being with Craig, which is like, it sucks, because once again, AJ likes her, and she's starting to like him too, but, it is what it is. And then it turns into a whole thing where, like, the moment the plate fell, I was like, oh my god, like, this is full Breaking Bad, isn't it? Where you have a piece of the plate, but she actually got the knife instead. I wasn't even expecting that, because like Rhiannon was like, "Where's the knife?" And she gets cut, and they're tossing stuff back at each other, and then she knocks Julie out. But then like you notice the red stain in her pants. I was like, oh, it's her period, isn't it? It's like, yeah. So, it's a complicated thing of, this is the person I kidnapped, and here I am, like, helping, like, prepare to bath for them. Got her like I don't know if that was like a tampon or like a Diva cup. I don't think it was a Diva cup. I think it was like a tampon. Whatever the case may be, with her flowing situation. So, and just kind of continuing that conversation, I thought was so interesting, like kind of the Julia and Rhiannon of it all. Later on, when she's kind of getting spruced up to kind of go see Craig, because she finds out, well, I'll talk about it separately, but when she goes to see Craig later on, because Marina wants to talk to him, like, Julia was like, oh, let me help doll you up. It's like, oh, none of this stuff is right for you. Like, because they're hazel eyes, you should wear this, and this, And I was like, interesting. I was like, well, you've got stuff in your hands that you could stab or jab her in the eye or whatever. I guess it's like, well, it won't help you get released from your situation. But even when she was putting the stuff, like the eyeliner or whatever, on her, like, it was right there. And she's telling her, like, oh, keep your eyes open. And she does. And you could tell she pauses for a moment, because I think she was contemplating it. But part of me wonders, is there a part of her that's like, I guess for her, it's like, well, if I do anything and if I don't end up killing her, I'm just going to piss her off and she's going to kill me. But I think there's also the element of maybe some of what she has said has stuck with her, and she has started to be a little more sympathetic when it comes to Rhiannon, because like she herself sadly is a victim herself, like Julia with Marcus. So maybe that has made her a little more sympathetic. Even once again, maybe she's always felt some form of guilt, or maybe it's only now she's having to face the guilt that she recognizes, like, wow, you and me are actually kind of the same. Like, realizing what Marcus puts her through, she's like, I can understand why, like, you feel the way. Like, I might give you pushback on, like, we were kids and yada yada yada, but I think she is starting to legitimately regret, because she could have done something in that moment. But once again, the smart thing is, if you did something in a moment, you would have like screwed your chances of getting out of this alive. So that could have just been her being pragmatic in that moment, even though she was kind of being like, yo, like, she stopped it, being like, because I think even Rhiannon's gonna look at her like, oh, you're gonna do something or not? And she didn't do it, and so she just took the pencil from her and just put it down. So it's just kind of interesting. So another angle to this episode is, speaking of Marina, she is dead set on it being Rhiannon, because she's like, right, Rhiannon was at that club where the first victim died. She left around the same time the first victim died, and she's tied to this most recent person that's missing, who might be the third victim, is Julia. There's a connection there. It's like, oh, also, the second victim, she was at karaoke around the same time that victim died too. So, but her boss doesn't want to listen to her. It's so interesting because Moreno keeps bringing up these points, which is kind of the irony of, oh my god, like, maybe she's doing this stuff because she's someone that hasn't been seen before, and now this is kind of her way of like, yo, do you see me now? And it's like, which is ironic, because that's the thing that connects her and Morena and Rhiannon. It's like both of them are like invisible to a lot of people. I feel like Rory doesn't like, because that's kind of her partner, so it's like I don't think he treats her that way. Everyone else in the office gives her gaff, and her boss like kind of overlooks her. It's like, oh, that top you got me last episode, yeah, I need you to return it. Also, I don't have the receipt, so you're gonna need to get store credit. It's like, man. And later on, she makes that whole analogy of calling Marina like, oh, you have a cat at home. You're single. She's like, yes. It's like your cat comes when you tell it to eat, and then it shits, and it kind of does its own thing and kind of ignores you. She's like, yeah, I guess. She's like, yeah, you're the cat in this situation, saying that the other officers in this building aren't meant here to, like, placate and follow your instincts. But it's like, you should trust her instincts, because at the end of the day, she is 100% right. To be fair, what I thought was interesting is like her boss was like, oh, it's got to be the boyfriend, because Marcus did like lie about. It's like, right, Rhiannon did, because Marina brought up the point of, oh, like Rhiannon wrote this story before the fiance had even reported her missing. It's like, well, to be fair, it's like, well, which is true, the article was like being written beforehand, but like Rhiannon was under the impression that he had already reported it to the police, because he lied to her and said that. So that, I mean, for me, I'm like, they were already foreshadowing what the episode was going to be, but also it's like, yeah, even from there, I'm like, well, you're setting him up to be the perfect fall guy, because it is statistically, or it's always, not always the boyfriend, but they're definitely statistically looked at as the most likely perpetrator. So it's like everything is kind of working out to Rhiannon's favor, especially because he did lie about reporting it to the police. He didn't report his girlfriend missing, So once again, we know, well, he did that because he didn't want to take the chance of, well, what if this is a situation, if I get the police involved, they might see how I treat my fiance, so there's that angle to it. But yeah. So and I was thinking like maybe that storyline could have not only help out with like pointing the finger at him, but also making you take a deeper look at him and Julia's relationship, realizing how much of an abusive piece of shit he is. So I was like, there was kind of like wiggle room in that regard of how that could be applicable as well. But so the boss wasn't wrong to bring that up, because it is really suspicious that he didn't report her missing. So that's a whole thing. But once again, it goes back to Marina's point of the article still coming out before then, so that does raise some red flags. So, but yeah, like her boss is still a dick or whatever, but still. And the way Rory puts it is kind of like, oh yeah, like she doesn't like Mavericks, but it's like Marina is right, and she trusts her instincts on this, because she is piecing it all together. She goes to where Julia's car was left. The tires were slashed. She's like, oh wait, this Tommy place. Oh, it was owned by Rhiannon's dad. So, and then there's like that. It's interesting too how it ties back, because Craig was going to talk to, well, because he was talking to. It seems like he was talking to both of them separately. I mean, it makes sense. They're probably like one of the few like construction like groups in like probably like only like construction company in town, because I was like, right, he was working with Marcus on something, and it's like, well, that's that other house that he was having built for Julia, and Julia was coming to him about the whole situation with Rhiannon's house. So she finds out on that front of like, okay, so not only is this Rhiannon's house, well, Rhiannon's connected to this place where Julia went missing. She eventually like talks to Craig, but Rhiannon had gotten to Craig first and was like, yo, I kind of lied. He's like, yo, I said I was going to be somewhere else when I was supposed to be at this work thing, so I can't let you tell anyone that I was with you when you were with Julia. And he kind of said like, yeah, nothing happened. Me and Julia were talking about, my girlfriend's place. I was like, well, we're not dating yet, but I mean, we're practically there, And so that just makes Marina more and more suspicious of Rhiannon. I can't remember that. I was trying to remember. I was like, I believe that scene happened before the situation, before like the search party. I can't remember if that happened before or after. But switching over to Rhiannon, her and AJ and Jeff all went to like that gathering of like, hey, this is where everyone's gathered for the search party, and it's like, cool, Jeff is there and he's working on something, and he's being super suspicious about, like, he's like, I've been talking to Marcus about you, and he's like, and it's the title of the episode, it's like, you're someone's been a naughty girl or something like that, right? And at first you're like, it's not about Julia. I thought, like, was he gonna try and, it's like, I was like, the only thing I could think of is like, not unless he's gonna bust her balls about the whole being bullied by Julia thing, but I'm like, would you really be able to write stuff about that? Because I was like, I thought those were the secrets he was talking about, because I'm like, I couldn't think of anything else that he could be talking about. But then we find out what it is, because, like, I was like, is Marcus spinning some story or something? Like, is he going to lie and say they slept? I'm like, what could this be about? And we find out Marcus is getting on Rhiannon's case because, you poured coffee on my seat. I know you did it. Because I guess it's like, right, no one else has been there. And also Julia adds to the whole point of, like, he's very meticulous and particular about, like, that white furniture, so it makes sense. And he's gotten deep-seated anger issues. So that all kind of retroactively, like, makes... Not that it's okay, but obviously it's like, you're like, I can see why that played out the way it did. But regardless, I guess the whole point was Jeff found out from Marcus. Like, Marcus is probably like, that lady, she's an asshole. She poured this like, because I can't, like, the friends are the ones who told Marina about Julia and Rhiannon's history, but I don't know if Marcus knew their history enough. Like, I don't know if he was going to, like, use that as fuel of, like, you have beef with Julia, so you did this. I guess just the general thing is, hey, she's a weirdo and an asshole, and he was going to, like put that out there. I don't know, because, like, that's the only thing that really came up about all that. So I'm like, because Marcus was going to make a point to try and, he's like, me and Jeff are going to work together to get you fired. So I'm like, interesting. But yeah, Rhiannon decided to follow him and tried to kill Marcus, and in the process, I was like, don't do it, because I was like, I saw Jeff leaving at the same time, and I was like, please don't let him be following you. But then he kind of was, but maybe he just happened to be going by in that same direction. He saw her having the knife out, almost trying to kill Marcus. He keeps him moving, and Jeff is like, what were you about to do? She's like, nothing, and she has to chase after him because he figures it out that you're the killer. And I was like, the moment he's on the bike, I was like, he's going to get hit by a vehicle, isn't he? And lo and behold, he does. He gets hit by, I think it was like a bus. I was like, ooh, and it was a bloody smear. Because for a second, I was like, well, you better hope he's dead. Because if we find out that he's in a coma or that he's still alive, which we never got clarification this episode, I get the feeling like we might find out next episode he's still alive. I don't remember, someone correct me. Did he have a camera on top of his helmet? Because he could have been recording that stuff, so he might have caught Rhiannon, like that whole thing he might have caught on camera with, like, Rhiannon, like, with the knife trying to go after the Marcus, maybe. So if that was recorded, it could still be amongst his belongings type of situation, so there's that. But like I said, also he could be alive and he could try to testify that, and that might lead to Rhiannon having to sneak into a hospital and snuff him. I don't know, but that's where my brain goes. But, like, we never got clarification on, oh my god, he's dead, because we don't talk about him this episode. So it probably won't be until, like, next episode that circles back around. Because at the end of the day, Rhiannon was going to, that might be the spot where her first murder took place. I don't know, but she was going to throw away the knife. Obviously, the knife is her dad, so it has massive sentimental value, especially now that he's gone. Well, staying in the realm of family really quickly, it is interesting. So we probably will see Saren in the finale because she was tired of her sister dodging her calls and is like, fine, I'm going to make my way back home because of all this. So I was curious. I'm curious at what that confrontation and those conversations are going to be like, potentially. But yeah, she was going to throw the knife away until she got a text being like, oh, I'm going to find out where you live, you bitch. And then the next text message, this is Marcus, by the way. I'm like, I love that. I was like, that's so fucked up. But I figured as much. I was like, could that be? I was like, oh, it has to be Marcus. And then literally as I'm thinking that, about to say it out loud, he literally texted. So I was like, oh, interesting. I was like, should you really be sending a text like that? That's kind of incriminating. And she's like, oh, should you really be threatening someone while your fiance's... And then she stops herself. It's like, that's when she's like, yeah, okay, he's going to be the fall guy. Because her and Julia were talking about it previously of like, they're both kind of sorry that things... Because like Julia had said like, right, like, considering everything, we could have been friends back in school. And she's like, oh, what? Like, you were going to save me? She's like, maybe. And it's like, well, maybe I could have saved you. And it's like, it's like, what do we do in this situation? It's kind of like, I want to kill you, but I kind of can't kill you because I feel sorry for you, but I have my hatred for you. So I'm a victim of you, but you're also the victim of someone else. So what do we do in this conundrum? And Rhiannon's thinking is, right, we frame Marcus for kidnapping and murder. I thought at the very least you, like, I don't know. I wasn't expecting a kidnapping angle to it. I thought you were just going to frame him as the murderer, but it's like, well, I'll also add in the kidnapping to it as well. Once again, he's not a good dude, so it's not like you're framing an innocent person, but still. She's reluctant. Julia's reluctant about it, but it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, you want to be free, and this is how we save ourselves. Like, this is both of our out of this situation. And Rhiannon's like, Julia, do not fuck me on this. And she's like, I won't. I was like, I actually don't know if Julia, she got in a vehicle, and it's like, probably could have, it's like, how far could you get if you try to run away? So I think she is kind of sold on the idea. Like, when Marcus ultimately does show up, she could have been like, yo, like, confessed everything, but it is a thing of, once again, I think she does feel sorry for Rhiannon, and it's a way out of this for both of us. And honestly, I love him, but it's also because I'm kind of forced to love him in a kind of very Stockholm Syndrome type of way. So it's such an interesting situation. Because the timing came perfectly, too, because just after, like, Rhiannon and... Because we didn't know this at the time, but Rhiannon and Julia had just left, and Marina had shown up with Rory at Rhiannon's house, and she wanted to kind of break in, but Rory stopped her. It's like, well, luckily they're not there anyway, but there still would have been enough there to seem incriminating. But, as Rory follows the rules, it's like, right, we don't have a warrant. And once again, it would screw things up if Marina had done what she had done, or wanted to do, because you're just like, right, you would have found nothing, and even anything you found would have been poison, would have been an apple from the poisonous tree, because all that could have gotten thrown out of court. I would assume. I'm basing this on crime dramas that and police procedurals I've seen here in the U.S. British judicial system is different, so I'm sure there's overlap law-wise and stuff like that, but I don't know enough to really say that confidently. But yeah, getting to the point I was bringing up earlier, they were able to draw Marcus into their trap, and he fell for it, and Julia kind of was like, yeah, the person who did this was a he, but then he was like, wait, did he have sex with you? And Julia was like, what? No, there was no sex had here. And for her, it's like, wait, is that what you're mad about? Not even me being kidnapped, that the guy, it's like, we didn't have sex. He's like, but where is it? It's like, where? He's like looking for evidence of the sex and stuff, and she's like, what are you even talking about? And then, like, I forgot what was said. I don't know if that in itself was enough to set him off, and he starts choking her, and Rhiannon's kind of like, well, what do I do? And it's like, fuck, okay, like, I'm a try and, she comes out of the shadows like, yo, stop that. And he was like, oh my God, I can't believe you did this. He's like, what, you're leaving me? What, everything I've ever done for you, I've done all this stuff to this house to match the stuff you like. It's like, you're breaking my heart. I love you. Sometimes I lose my temper. I'm sorry. It's like, like any abuser. I'm sorry. It's never going to happen again. Hell, we even saw, like, she has a scar, like, in the, like near the back of, like, her, on her neck, on the side of her neck, near the back of her head. She's like, yeah, because he had pushed her through, like, a glass door or some shit like that. So it's like, yes, it's that abusive cycle of, I hit you and I hurt you, but I'll never do it again. It was a mistake. I'm sorry, baby. And then he's threatening to kill himself, which I'm like, might benefit everyone if he kind of goes through with it. But Julia stops him, like, right, I didn't mean it. And Rhiannon's kind of looking at it as, well, for one, she's got that killer in her where it's just like, oh, I kind of want to kill someone else. And you're a bully, so you're kind of my perfect victim. But also, it's like, yeah, I'm doing Julia a favor by getting her away from you. And I push you, you fall, and you die. And you see that smirk on Rhiannon's face, like, hey, Julia, like, the cops are here because we called them for this purpose. But it's like, things didn't play out the way you wanted to. But hey, this is the story we're going to tell. And lo and behold, obviously, Marina was in the area. So, well, her and Rory in the area. So, of course, they arrive with the other cops. And lo and behold, she finds her there with Julia. Because she did confront Rhiannon early in the episode about, like, her connection. Like, oh, this person who used to bully her. And it's like, oh, here you are trying to oh, you're still doing that whole thing of pulling your hair out and stuff. It's like striking all these points. So Rhiannon knows that Morena's onto her, but doesn't have anything concrete. But it's like, this is definitely going to be interesting to see what like this interrogation is like. And as we can see, she's able to whip out bullshit. But I mean, even Craig didn't give up Rhiannon. He was just like, no, she wasn't here. But Morena could tell he was lying. He'd even said like, yo, I'm not good with being questioned by a cop, because, you know, he's the type of person that's like, I'll cave under the pressure and say something. But like, he didn't say anything about Rhiannon, but that still could come up next episode. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure that Jeff is dead, and if he didn't record like Rhiannon's attempted murder of Marcus. So, and can you trust Julia not to throw you under the bus? Like, she is free of Marcus, but if, you know, there will always be this connection between you and her. So this could be a way of freeing herself, or maybe she goes along with it, but Morena starts poking holes in some of her alibi and stuff. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this all wraps up with the finale next week, but I'm just, because I believe, because obviously the show's already done in like the UK. It already, I think it might even gotten dropped all at once. I'm not sure, but I know the title of the next episode is like Life 2.0. So I'm like, what does that? There's so many interpretations of what that could be. So, you know, is that going to end with Rhiannon in jail? Because the whole plan was not even to like kill Marcus. It was actually to send him to jail. Like, you know, he still gets framed for everything by the end, but now it's like, well, you've got a dead body, and I don't know. Like, the history of abuse could help sell the story that they're trying to tell the police. So, because I mean, Julia could be, I don't know if she'd be like thrown in as an accomplice in all of this, or a conspirator, because I'm sure they could try to throw that on Julia, Morena, because I'm sure she's going to be the main instigator for this. She could easily throw that on Julia just to try and get Julia to roll on Rhiannon. So I don't know how this is all going to work, whether Rhiannon's going to get away with it, whether she's going to rot in prison. It could just be a thing of, ironically, because Julia was like, I'm not going to fuck you over, and wasn't going to, but maybe next episode in the finale, she does fuck her over. I don't know. Or maybe Rhiannon gets away with it scot-free, and, you know, she gets away with the crime, but Morena still got her eye on her, being like, maybe I'll catch you in the future. Maybe the series ends with her. I could definitely see it also ending with her, like, running into, like, another asshole, and then just being like, oh, ready to pick out her next victim type of thing. So, I don't know. There's multiple ways this could play out. It is going to be interesting to see how it ultimately does. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.